MGM Plus just confirmed the title and synopsis for the Season 4 finale of From, and it changes how we should be reading the last 3 episodes of the season. The episode is called If a Tree Falls in the Forest. The official line from MGM Plus reads, Boyd's quest to lead the residents home reaches a terrifying crossroads, and nothing will ever be the same again. That's the whole synopsis. 19 words. And horror shows almost never waste words in a finale logline, so every piece of that sentence is doing work. Today we're breaking down what that sentence actually tells us, what it leaves out on purpose, how it lines up with confirmed details from the cast and the production team, and why this finale is carrying more weight than any other episode in the show's 4-season history. Because this isn't just the end of a season. According to the people who make the show, this is the beginning of the end of the entire series. Let's get into it. Start with the title itself, because From has a pattern of titles that mean something once you've actually watched the episode, not before. If a Tree Falls in the Forest is borrowed from the old philosophical question about whether a sound exists if nobody's around to hear it. On a show that revolves around trees that act as gateways, trees that mark the edge of the town's reach, and a literal tree trunk that keeps reappearing on the road into town, that phrase is not decorative. There's a reading of this title that's about witness. If something catastrophic happens in that forest, and none of the town's leadership survives to explain it, did it even happen the way we think it did? Does the town even register the change? Or does life inside the curse just continue regardless of who's left to understand it? There's a second reading that's more literal. The promotional image MGM Plus released for this episode shows Boyd alone in the forest at night with a flashlight, apparently measuring distances between trees. If that's the tree falling, the finale might be about a discovery, not a death. Something in the geography of those trees might finally explain how the town's exits work, or why they never have. Both readings can be true at once. That's usually how this show operates. It rarely picks one metaphor when 2 will do. Here's where the analysis gets genuinely interesting, and it's something a lot of recap channels have skipped over. If you line up the synopses for episodes 7 through 10, you get a structure that looks deliberate rather than accidental. Episode 7 is where Boyd starts forming a theory, something dangerous and unproven. Episode 8's official synopsis describes the residents reaching, quote, a crossroads unlike any they've faced before, as Boyd sets a daring and dangerous plan in motion. So by the end of episode 8, this isn't a theory anymore. It's active. Episode 9, titled The Calm Before, is airing the same week this video is going up, and based on the title alone, that's exactly what it sounds like. The pause before something breaks. And then episode 10 is the only one in this run that isn't framed around planning or waiting. It's framed entirely around consequence. The crossroads language repeats, but this time it's described as terrifying rather than daring. It's paired directly with that closing line about nothing ever being the same. Theory, then plan, then stillness, then fallout. For episodes that form one continuous shape, the writers apparently built this stretch as a single unit rather than 4 standalone episodes stitched together. And once you notice that structure, the back half of this season reads completely differently. It also tells you something about pacing. The finale isn't where the big swing happens. The big swing already happened by episode 9. Episode 10 is where the show makes you sit with what that swing cost. It's worth pausing on Boyd specifically, because the season has been quietly dismantling him since the premiere. Harold Perrineau's character started this show as the de facto leader, holding the town together through sheer will. By the start of season 4, that's already cracking. Reporting on the early episodes describes Boyd counting his remaining bullets and talking about how the town's last real choice might just be how its people die, not whether they escape. That's a long way from the guy who spent 3 seasons promising everyone they'd find a way home. So when the finale synopsis uses the word crossroads to describe what Boyd's, quote, mission to take the residents home runs into, that word is carrying a lot of history. This isn't a fresh decision for a fresh character. This is a worn-down man making what might be his last real attempt at the one thing he's defined his entire arc by. If the plan that started in episode 8 actually works, That's potentially the most significant turning point the show has had in 4 seasons. If it doesn't, the show has spent an entire season building toward Boyd losing the one thing that's kept him upright since episode 1. Either direction is enormous. That's most likely the actual point of withholding outcome information from the synopsis. They don't want you walking in already knowing which version of Boyd you're getting. Now here's where we need to slow down, because most breakdowns of the season get the Sophia storyline slightly wrong, or at least incomplete. For anyone who needs the full context, Sophia isn't a new character with a secret. Sophia is the man in yellow. That reveal happened at the very end of the season 4 premiere. The man in yellow, previously confined to that yellow suit we've seen since season 1, sheds it entirely and reappears as a young woman who crashes in a town claiming to be a pastor's daughter. By the end of episode 1, Sophia kills the man she arrived with and reveals what she actually is. This matters because it changes the entire threat model of the show. For 3 seasons, danger in this town came from the forest at night. Starting in season 4, danger can sit at your dinner table and ask how your day was. Julia Doyle, who plays Sophia, gave an interview where she explained the specific logic behind that disguise. She described it as using the appearance of innocence and sheltered religious upbringing as cover. The idea being that if Sophia acts strange or says something off, the town just assumes she's sheltered or homeschooled rather than suspecting anything sinister. Doyle put it directly, there are a lot of people who use religion as a shield, and that's exactly the function it serves here. That's a smarter version of the infiltration theory than just she's hiding in plain sight. She's specifically using the kind of identity that makes people lower their guard rather than raise it. Doyle has also said in multiple interviews that her process involves picking targets based on vulnerability rather than going after everyone equally. She's mentioned staying close to characters who've recently experienced loss, because grief makes people easier to manipulate and less likely to ask hard questions. That's a colder, more calculated version of this villain than the show has used before. The man in yellow in past seasons felt almost like a force of nature. Sophia feels like a strategist. And here's the detail that actually matters for the finale specifically. Doyle has confirmed in at least 2 separate interviews that her biggest material is concentrated in episodes 9 and 10. She's described those episodes as the ones where Sophia interacts with someone she hasn't previously had scenes with, and she's called it one of her favorite stretches to film. If her largest contribution to the season lands in the same 2 episodes where Boyd's plan goes from execution to consequence, those storylines are almost certainly colliding directly in the finale, not running in parallel. That's the version of this season's climax that actually lines up with the evidence. It's not Boyd's plan in one corner and Sophia's manipulation in another. It's both forces converging in the same 10 episodes, possibly the same rooms. Here's something that doesn't get said enough when people cover this show. The stakes around this finale are different from every finale that came before it. And it's not just because of the plot. It's because of what MGM Plus announced just before season 4 even premiered. The network confirmed, days ahead of the season 4 premiere, that has been renewed for a 5th season, and that season 5 will be the show's final one. The creative team, John Griffin, Jeff Pinkner, and director Jack Bender, released a joint statement saying they're now able to bring the story to its actual conclusion, with what they described as a mix of answers, more questions, and what they called a cascade of, quote, tears and terrors before it's done. In a separate interview, Griffin said something that reframes how we should watch this exact episode. He said that ending season 3 with Jim's death felt like the end of the beginning of the show, and that season 4 very naturally feels like the beginning of the end. That's not just marketing language. That's the actual writer of the show telling you that episode 10 of this season isn't building toward a generic cliffhanger. It's building toward the start of the final stretch of the entire series. That context changes the weight of nothing will ever be the same again. On most shows, that phrase is a trailer cliche. On a show where the creative team has explicitly said this episode marks the turn from rising action to endgame, it's closer to a literal statement of intent. One thread worth flagging before we wrap up, the boy in white. He appeared briefly in season 3 with almost no explanation, then showed up again early in Season 4 to tell Tabitha and Henry that they were running out of time, and then essentially disappeared from the narrative. We're now 9 episodes into a 10-episode season, and none of the official synopses have referenced him once. On most shows, that would just mean a drop thread. On this show, that kind of silence is usually a setup. From has a track record of saving its biggest mythology reveals for season finales rather than spreading them out, and a character who's been given just enough screen time to matter, but not enough to explain, is exactly the kind of loose end a finale typically resolves, or at least addresses directly. If the boy in white does factor into episode 10, that would give the finale 2 separate, fairly major threads to pay off. Whatever Boyd's plan actually produces, and whatever this character has been trying to warn people about since season 3. That's a lot for one episode, even a season finale, which might be part of why MGM Plus kept the official synopsis so short. There may simply be too much in this episode to summarize without giving something away. So here's where all of this lands. The confirmed synopsis tells us Boyd's plan reaches a crossroads, which means the show is not promising resolution. It's promising a fork, and forks in this kind of story usually come with a cost attached. The 4-episode arc structure tells us the actual plan already played out by episode 9, which means episode 10 is entirely about dealing with what that plan did or didn't accomplish. The Sophia material tells us the Man in Yellow's biggest moves of the season are concentrated in these same 2 episodes, which strongly suggest her storyline and Boyd's storyline aren't separate anymore by the time we reach the finale. And the Season 5 renewal tells us this episode isn't required to wrap everything up. The writers have already said, on record, that Season 4 is the beginning of the end, not the end itself. That gives this finale permission to leave real damage on the table rather than neatly resetting everything before next season. Put together, the most reasonable read going into episode 10 is this. Boyd's plan produces a real result. Not nothing, but the cost of getting that result is significant enough that the season ends with the town fundamentally changed rather than simply closer to going home. That's the full picture going into the finale, based on everything that's actually been confirmed so far. If new details drop before episode 10 airs, we'll be covering them. For now, that's where the evidence points. What's your read on how this ends? Let us know, and we'll see you for the next one.